Give me a son, and you may keep everything. I only have 1 year left, said the mountain man. High in the Rocky Mountains, far away from busy towns and noisy roads, there was a small wooden cabin standing quietly among tall pine trees. The mountains were wide and peaceful. In the morning, the air smelled fresh and cold. In the evening, the sky turned golden as the sun slowly disappeared behind the rocky hills. In that lonely place lived a man named Elias Boone. Elias was known by many people as the Mountain Man. He had lived in the mountains for many years. His beard was long and gray, and his face showed the lines of a life spent outdoors. He wore a wide hat, thick boots, and a warm coat that had been repaired many times. Even though Elias looked strong and brave, he was a very quiet man. His cabin was small but neat. Inside, there was a wooden table, a rocking chair near the fireplace, and shelves filled with tools and books. Outside the cabin stood a small stable where his old horse, Dusty, lived. Dusty had been with Elias for many years, and the two understood each other well. Every morning Elias woke up early. He would step outside the cabin and take a deep breath of the cold mountain air. Then he would feed Dusty, gather firewood, and check the small garden beside the cabin. Sometimes he spent hours fixing tools or walking along the mountain trails. From far away, his life looked peaceful, but the truth was different. Elias was very lonely. Many years ago, he had not lived alone. Long ago, he had a family, laughter, and a warm home filled with voices. But time had changed many things. One by one, the people he loved were gone, and the quiet mountains became his only company. At first, Elias believed he could live with the silence. Years passed. The seasons changed again and again. Snow covered the mountains in winter. Flowers grew in spring, and golden leaves filled the air in autumn. But the cabin remained quiet. Sometimes at night, Elias sat beside the fireplace and looked at the empty chair across the table. The fire crackled softly, but there was no one to talk to. One cold morning, Elias rode Dusty down the long trail toward the nearest town. The town was small, but it had a general store, a bakery, and a doctor's office. Elias did not visit town often, but this time he had an important reason. For a few weeks, he had not been feeling well. His breathing felt heavy, and he often felt tired after simple work. So he went to see Dr. Miller, a kind old doctor who had known Elias for many years. Dr. Miller welcomed him with a warm smile. "Elias, it's been a long time," the doctor said. Elias nodded politely and sat down. After checking him carefully, the doctor became quiet. His smile slowly faded, and he folded his hands on the desk. "Elias," he said gently, "there is something important I need to tell you." Elias listened calmly. The doctor explained that Elias's body had grown weak over the years. The mountains had given him strength, but time had slowly taken it away. Then the doctor said something Elias would never forget. "You may only have 1 year left." The room became very quiet. Elias did not shout or panic. He simply looked out the window for a moment. Outside, people were walking along the dusty street, talking and laughing like any normal day. But for Elias, everything suddenly felt different. After a moment, he slowly stood up. "Thank you for telling me the truth," Elias said quietly. Dr. Miller looked at him with concern. "Is there anything you need?" the doctor asked. Elias thought for a moment. Then he shook his head. "No," he said softly, "but there is something I must do." Elias left the doctor's office and walked through the small town. His boots made soft sounds against the dusty road. He stopped in front of the town notice board, where people usually posted messages about lost horses, jobs, or town meetings. For a long moment, Elias stood there thinking. He had land, he had a cabin, he had horses, tools, and years of knowledge about the mountains. But he had no one to leave it to. More than that, he had no one to share his final year with. Slowly, Elias pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. He borrowed a pencil from the store and carefully wrote a message. His handwriting was simple but clear. When he finished, he pinned the paper to the board. The message read, "Give me a son for 1 year, and you may keep everything I own. I only have 1 year left." People passing by soon stopped to read the strange message. Some were confused. Some were curious. Others simply shook their heads and walked away. But high in the mountains, Elias Boone rode back to his cabin with a quiet hope in his heart. The strange message on the town notice board quickly became the talk of the small town. Every morning, people stopped in front of the board and read it again. Give me a son for 1 year, and you may keep everything I own. I only have 1 year left. Some people laughed. Some people looked confused. Why would anyone want to live in the mountains for a whole year? One man said. Another person replied, that old mountain man must be lonely. A few people even wondered if the message was a joke. Days passed, but no one went to mountains. Most people were comfortable in town. They liked their warm houses, busy streets, and friendly neighbors. Living high in the mountains with an old man they barely knew did not sound easy. But not everyone in town had a comfortable life. Across the town, near the edge of the dusty road, there was a small ranch where a boy named Noah Carter worked. Noah was 14 years old. He was tall for his age, with messy brown hair and curious eyes. He worked hard every day, feeding animals, cleaning barns, and helping the ranch owner with simple chores. Noah had lived there for a few years. He was not treated badly, but the ranch was not really his home. He had no parents and no family. When the work ended each evening, he slept in a small room near the barn. Sometimes he watched the sunset alone and wondered what it would feel like to truly belong somewhere. One afternoon, Noah walked through town to buy supplies for the ranch. As he passed the notice board, the paper caught his attention. He stepped closer and read the message slowly. Give me a son for 1 year. Noah read the words again. Something about the message felt different from the other notes on the board. It did not ask for workers or offer money for a job. It asked for a son. Noah stood there quietly, thinking. A year in the mountains sounded difficult, but the thought of living with someone who truly wanted a son made his heart feel warm. That evening, Noah asked the ranch owner about the mountain man. Oh, that's Elias Boone, the ranch owner said while fixing a saddle. He's a quiet fellow, lives far up in the mountains, keeps to himself mostly. Is he a bad man? Noah asked. The ranch owner shook his head. No, not at all. Folks say he's honest and hardworking, just very alone. That night, Noah could not sleep. The wind moved softly outside the barn, and the moonlight shined through the small window. He kept thinking about the message. Maybe Elias Boone was lonely. Maybe he just wanted someone to talk to. And maybe Noah also needed something he had never truly had before, a father. The next morning, Noah woke up early. Before the ranch owner even started the day's work, Noah packed a small bag with a few clothes, a blanket, and a piece of bread. Then he walked toward the mountain trail. The journey was long. The road slowly turned into a narrow path that climbed higher and higher into the mountains. Tall trees surrounded the trail, and the air became cooler as Noah walked. For hours he followed the path. Birds sang in the trees, and the wind moved gently through the branches. Finally, as the sun began to lower in the sky, Noah saw something between the trees, a small wooden cabin. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. Outside the cabin stood a stable and a horse with dusty brown fur. Noah took a deep breath and walked closer. At that moment, the cabin door opened. An old man stepped outside. His beard was gray and long, and his hat shaded his eyes from the sunlight. It was Elias Boone. Elias looked surprised to see someone standing near his cabin. Visitors were very rare in the mountains. The old man walked slowly toward the boy. Can I help you? Elias asked in a calm voice. Noah held his small bag tightly and tried to speak clearly. Are you the one who wrote the message in town? He asked. Elias nodded slowly. Yes, he said. That was me. Noah looked at the cabin, the tall mountains behind it, and the quiet forest around them. Then he looked back at Elias. My name is Noah Carter, the boy said. I read your message. Elias waited patiently. Noah took a small breath. I don't have a family, he said honestly. But if you truly want a son for 1 year. He paused for a moment. I would like to stay. For a few seconds, the mountain air was completely quiet. Elias Boone looked at the boy carefully. The old man had expected curious people, maybe greedy people, or people joking about his message. But he had not expected a boy with honest eyes and a small travel bag. Finally, Elias spoke. You understand what you're asking for? He said gently. Life here is not easy. Noah nodded. I know, he said, but I'm not afraid of hard work. Elias looked at the mountains around them. Then he looked back at the boy. For the first time in many years, the lonely mountain man felt something warm inside his heart. A small smile appeared on his face. Well then, Elias said kindly, life in the mountains was very different from life in the town. When Noah first arrived at Elias Boone's cabin, everything felt new and quiet. The tall trees, the fresh air, and the wide mountains made the world feel much bigger than the busy streets of town. But Noah soon learned that mountain life also meant hard work every day. Elias woke up early each morning, usually before the sun appeared over the hills. The sky would still be pale blue when he stepped outside the cabin. Noah quickly learned to wake up early, too. Their first job every morning was to take care of Dusty, Elias's old horse. Noah brushed Dusty's fur, while Elias prepared food for him. Dusty seemed to like Noah right away. The horse gently pushed his nose against the boy's shoulder, as if welcoming him. After feeding the horse, Elias and Noah gathered firewood, checked the small garden beside the cabin, and cleaned around the stable. At first, Noah made small mistakes. One morning, he dropped a bucket of water. Another day, he stacked the firewood the wrong way. But Elias never became angry. Instead, he patiently showed Noah the correct way to do things. Every job has its own way, Elias told him. When you learn the right way, the work becomes easier. Slowly, Noah improved. Within a few weeks, he could carry wood, cook simple meals, and take care of Dusty without help. He felt proud every time Elias nodded with approval. But the most important lessons were not only about work. Sometimes in the evening, after dinner, Elias and Noah sat outside the cabin and watched the sunset. The mountains turned orange and gold as the sun slowly disappeared behind them. The wind moved gently through the tall pine trees, making a soft, whispering sound. Those quiet evenings became their favorite time of the day. One evening, Noah asked a question he'd been thinking about for many days. "Mr. Boone," he said, "why did you put that message on the notice board?" Elias looked at the sunset for a moment before answering. "For many years," he said slowly, "I lived alone up here. At first, I thought I liked the silence." He paused and smiled gently. But silence can become very heavy when it lasts too long. Noah listened carefully. "I had land, a cabin, tools, and horses," Elias continued. "But I realized that none of those things matter if there is no one to share them with." Noah looked down at the ground thoughtfully. "So you wanted someone to inherit your land?" he asked. Elias shook his head. "No," he said kindly. "Land and money are not the most important things in life." He turned and looked directly at Noah. "I wanted someone to teach. Someone who could carry the lessons of the mountains after I am gone." Noah thought about those words for a long time. Over the next months, Elias continued teaching him many things. He showed Noah how to read the sky to understand the weather. He taught him how to follow mountain trails and how to find safe paths between the rocks. They also worked together in the garden, planting vegetables and watering them carefully every morning. Noah discovered that Elias knew many small secrets about nature. "Look at the birds," Elias once said, pointing toward the sky. "When they fly low, rain may come soon." Another day, he showed Noah how to find clean water from a small mountain stream. "Nature always gives signs," Elias explained. "You only need patience to see them." As time passed, the cabin no longer felt lonely. Laughter sometimes echoed between the trees. Noah told stories from the town, and Elias shared memories from his younger days in the mountains. Dusty often stood nearby, quietly listening as if he enjoyed their company. One cool autumn afternoon, while they were repairing a wooden fence near the stable, Noah finally asked another question. "Elias," he said carefully, "do you still think of me as just someone staying here for 1 year?" Elias stopped working and looked at the boy. The wind moved softly through the trees. For a moment, Elias did not speak. Then he placed his hand gently on Noah's shoulder. "When you first arrived," he said slowly, "I thought you were just answering a message." He smiled warmly. "But now," he paused, "now it feels like the mountains sent me a son when I needed one the most." Noah's eyes widened slightly. He had come to mountains hoping to find a place to belong. But now he realized something important. He had not only found a home, he had found a family. And as the leaves of autumn slowly began to fall from the trees, The bond between the old mountain man months passed quietly in the mountains. Winter slowly turned into spring, and the snow that once covered the hills began to melt. Small streams flowed again, and green grass slowly returned to the valleys. For Elias Boone and Noah Carter, life had found a peaceful rhythm. Every morning they woke up early. They fed Dusty, worked in the garden, and repaired small things around the cabin. Noah had become much stronger and more confident than when he first arrived. He could now take care of many jobs on his own. Sometimes Elias watched the boy working and smiled quietly. Noah reminded him of the younger days of his own life, days when the mountains felt endless and full of adventure. But even though life was peaceful, Elias's body was slowly becoming weaker. Some days he became tired very quickly. Other days he needed to rest longer beside the fireplace. Noah noticed a change, but Elias never complained. One evening, after finishing their dinner, Elias and Noah sat outside the cabin, as they often did. The sky was filled with soft orange light, and the mountains looked calm and beautiful. Dusty stood near the fence, gently moving his tail. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Elias took a slow breath. "Noah," he said kindly, "do you remember the message I wrote in town?" Noah nodded. "Yes," he said. "You said if someone gave you a son for 1 year, they could keep everything you owned." Elias smiled gently. "That's right." He looked around the mountains, the cabin, the stable, and the garden. "This land has been my home for many years," he said. "Every tree and every trail holds a memory." Noah listened quietly. "But a place like this should not stay empty," Elias continued. "It needs someone who understands it, someone who respects it." He then turned to Noah. "And I believe that person is you." Noah looked surprised. "Me?" he asked softly. Elias nodded. "You have worked hard," he said. "You have learned patience, kindness, and responsibility. The mountains trust people like that." The wind moved gently through the trees as Elias reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a folded paper. "I went to town last week," Elias said. "Dr. Miller helped me prepare this." Noah carefully took the paper and opened it. It was a document with Elias's signature on it. "This paper says that the cabin, the land, the horse, and everything here belong to you," Elias explained. Noah's eyes grew wide. "But Elias—" "I didn't come here for that," Noah said quickly. Elias chuckled softly. "I know that," he replied. "That's exactly why you deserve it." For a moment, Noah didn't know what to say. He looked around the cabin, the mountains, and the peaceful sky above them. A year ago, he had arrived with only a small bag and many questions about life. Now he felt something he had never truly felt before. He felt at home. Elias leaned back in his chair and watched the sunset slowly disappear behind the mountains. "You gave an old man something very special this year," Elias said quietly. Noah looked at him. "What was that?" he asked. Elias smiled. "Company," he said, "laughter, and the feeling that my life will not simply fade away." The air became peaceful again. Birds flew across the evening sky, and the first stars began to appear. Weeks passed after that evening. Elias spent more time resting, but he always enjoyed sitting outside and watching Noah work around the cabin. One calm morning, as the sun rose above the mountains, Elias sat in his rocking chair near the cabin door. Noah was feeding Dusty and watering the garden. The mountain air was fresh and quiet. Elias closed his eyes peacefully. He felt proud and calm. The lonely mountain man who once feared leaving the world with nothing behind now knew that his life had passed its lessons to someone worthy. Noah finished his chores and walked back toward the cabin. When he saw Elias resting peacefully in the chair, he understood something deep in his heart. The mountains were quiet that morning, but they were no longer lonely. Years later, travelers who passed the mountains sometimes heard stories about a young rancher who lived in a wooden cabin high in the hills. People said he was kind, hardworking, and always willing to help anyone who needed shelter or advice. Beside the cabin stood an old horse named Dusty, and a small garden that grew stronger every year. And when people asked the young rancher where he learned the ways of the mountains, he always smiled and said the same words: "I learned them from the greatest mountain man who ever lived." Because sometimes the greatest treasure a person can leave behind is not land, gold, or property.